Welcome to Joe and Cliff Go to Cars and Coffee, episode 3. It's a beautiful fall day here in Parker, Colorado, and we're here at the Vehicle Vault's annual, actually monthly, Cars and Coffee event that's held the second Saturday of every month. And this is a very, very special Cars and Coffee video because all of the cars you're about to see are Datsuns. Beautiful, wonderfully restored Datsun automobiles. And all of them are different and have their own point of view. So stay tuned, we're going to show them to you right now. I'm here with Jim Griffith, who has this beautiful Datsun 240Z. So Jim, tell us a little bit about your car. Like, what year is this one?
It's a 1972 Datsun 240Z. It's been in the family. It belonged to my father-in-law. He bought it in Louisiana in 1972. And when he passed away, as a matter of fact, my wife used to drive this car when she was a teenager.
Wow.
It wasn't in this condition, but it's been fully restored since then. So
you said you had restored it and it took a lot of work. So what are we talking about as far as the process? How long did it take?
You know, I'd work on it, then I'd go on the back burner because I had kids in college or other expenses come up. But I just kept going. It took me about 11 years.
11 years? Yeah. Wow.
Top to bottom.
But this thing is beautiful. I mean, who did the paint?
The paint was done in Aurora. A guy, Donahue Restoration. He's very renowned for his work. He does great.
This looks beautiful. It looks very original. It's obviously the original color, right?
This is the original color. Original. It's called Datsun Red, but there's a lot of orange in it.
Yeah, it looks orange to me, but what do I know?
So
even the wheels look period correct, but those weren't like stock.
They're not the stock wheels, but they were dealer installed slotted mags. You could get them from the dealers like that. So it's
because that was the way of the world back then when the 240Z first came out. The dealers were loading them up with vinyl roofs, alloy wheels.
Air conditioning was another dealer installed item, and this
right?
one had it, and it's going to have it back.
Does it work?
It will.
I like that. I like that. Now this engine compartment is absolutely flawless. Now, can that be original? That block of relays? Is that what it is?
No. This car had issues with the electrical problems, so I put the high beams and low beams on a relay rather than going through the switch because they would burn. These cars are notorious for burning out the fuse blocks. All the power was going through the switch, so I added some relays for that. I added a fuel pump, electric fuel pump, so there's a relay for that. I'm an electrician, so I kind of like doing that kind of stuff.
Now, it's a flawless engine compartment. Are these SUs, original SUs?
Original, they're Hitachi SU identical.
So they're like a replacement for the original SUs?
The original SUs, Hitachi bought the patent, Nissan bought the patent from Skinner Union SU to make them in Japan, but they're identical.
But that's the way that they came from
stock,
originally.
Stock carbs, yes.
And it had two master cylinders?
Yeah, one for the front, one for the back. That's been upgraded also to a bigger.
But that looks like their original, though. I mean, the original appearance, anyway.
Their original appearance. Yeah. It's just a bigger bore, actually.
What's your take on the new Zs? Compared to these
I
old
like
ones.
them, but there's something about the old classics that's really. This is the Z. This is the original 240 that saved Nissan. I mean, they were going to go broke if they didn't come up with this. So.
But it's a beautiful car, and I really want to thank you for coming out today.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank you for talking to Cliff and I, because this is like a dream car to me. So.
All right, send me the link. I'd like to see it.
I sure will. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Clint, hi, glad to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Clint, who owns this beautiful 510, and we're continuing our Datsun theme for today's Cars and Coffee video. So, Clint, tell us about the car. What year is this one?
This is a 71 that was registered as a 72. So came off the factory line in 1971, but by the time a customer took possession, it was 1972. So a little bit of history there with the issuing of the title.
Isn't that kind of the way things were done in those days with imported cars? Because imported cars were pretty rare. I mean, they were a small segment of the market back then.
Well, and the Datsun really proliferated the western coast of the United States.
The western coast?
The western coast didn't really start making its way east really too quickly. So you can find Datsun 510s readily in places like Oregon, Vancouver, Washington, California.
But there were all kind of models. There was. This is a two-door.
This is a
There
two-door
was a
510.
four-door.
And technically.
And a wagon, right?
And a wagon. And technically, this is a two-door sedan. Because they reserved the name coupe, Bluebird Coupe, for a Japanese domestic market only design, which featured a little bit of a rake to the rear windscreen.
No, to the back. So
To
it's
the
kind of
back.
coupey.
Kind of, yes. So it's the two-door coupe is specific to a JDM model. So this is technically a two-door sedan.
Now you had said before that this engine had some relationship to Jim's 240Z.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
So the Datsun 510 originally came with what they call an L16 and an L18. So 1.8 liter L series engine. Very, very carbureted, basic. This one is an L20B, which is
a 2 liter?
A 2 liter of the L series. And it shares the block and the head design with what's in the 240s.
Well, is it the same engine that would have been in a Datsun 2000 sports car?
No.
Because there was a 1600 and a 2000 sports car, right?
This one came out of, so the Roadsters.
Yes.
Right? So those were a little bit different depending on years, and I'm not too familiar with the lineage of those engines.
You don't see many of those around either.
You don't. But this engine came out of a 78 to 80 Nissan 200SX.
So this is not the original engine.
Unfortunately, no.
But those look like the same kind of SUs that Jim had on his 240Z.
They're Hitachi SU carbs, 38 millimeter, a little bit undersized for this engine, but they actually came off of a 2000 Roadster.
Oh, no kidding.
And that's part
of
the...
So this is a hybrid of many different kinds of Datsuns.
And that's what's the great thing about the 510 is that it's kind of the hot rod of many like small Datsun Japanese-made cars. And what's brilliant about the 510 that I love is that they were a cheap car. They were built for economy, starting about probably $2,000 off the showroom floor, and it was utilitarian. But what they started finding out after they were in production is that they over-engineered the hell out of them. And that's why you see them competing still today on racing circuits.
They were very big in autocross and SCCA racing, right?
Still to this day. Still to this day. They actually took on folks like BMW and Porsche on the racing circuits.
Oh, and then Bob Sharp was like leading that charge, right?
Yep, with the Bree racing team.
Yeah.
And part of that, we do still have here in Colorado a notable person in the Datsun racing scene with Jeff Winters up in Westminster running his shop up there. So he races specific kinds of Datsuns? He builds them nowadays.
Oh, he built them.
But he did race Datsun 510s back in the day.
But this is a beautiful engine. I mean, did you do all that work yourself?
The engine restoration?
Yeah.
I actually paid somebody to do it who did a terrible job, so I had to go redo all of it. Lesson learned, if you want something done right, buy a book and do it yourself.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's a work in progress. The body and paint's going to be last. But
are you going to keep it yellow?
No. It'll be something different.
But will it be an original color?
So this green here is the original color.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's the original color, and it's very enticing, yes, to keep it that color.
Yeah, it would look really awesome.
But to be determined.
Clint, thank you so much. I really appreciate talking about this great Datsun and continuing our Datsun theme for today.
Hey, got to keep them running.
Yeah, thank you, Clint.
Of course.
I'm here with Michael with this beautiful 240s. This is a 240, right, Michael?
It's an early model 260Z.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's one of the rare ones.
Okay, that's great that you corrected me on that. So what is the difference between the 260 and the 240?
So the 240 segued into the 260 where they started introducing some safety standards, bigger bumpers, maybe some emission modules like an emission pump and whatnot. But other than that, the body, the lines, especially for the early model, they're pretty much the same.
Because it looked like a 240. Because I thought but the 260 was only made for a short time,
yeah,
right?
So they only made a couple thousand that were brought here to the United States for the early model, and then they quickly segregate
to the 280. Which was definitely, to my mind, a downgrade, right? What is your take on that?
I mean, funny enough, I know the literage of the motor follows the name, right? So 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, but the weight also followed. So
and it was longer too.
Yeah. So the 280Z started weighing close to 2,800 pounds, and it started becoming this GT car, which the 280ZX essentially was.
Yeah.
So you just kind of lost the way of having that lightweight two-door sports car, I think, as the model years
Which was the
progressed.
iconic 240Z, really.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to Jim about your engine. Now, your engine is looks different than his.
Yeah.
But he says it's basically the same. So what's different about your engine and what's in Jim's 240?
I mean, the driving, power plant here, they are kind of the same at their core. They all follow the same, block styles. You still have your L series block, N42, N47, whatever, with the same style heads, but they all, have a little bit of customization. This one is a 3.2 stroker that's been bored with a diesel crankshaft to get that extra stroke.
A
length.
diesel?
Yeah.
You mean a Datsun diesel?
Yeah, so the trick to getting a 3.2 stroker is you actually have to take an LD28 crankshaft, which is stamped V07, out of a L28D, which was in some early model Nissan Maximas and I think some forklifts. And that gets you the extra travel distance on the stroke, and then couple that with a bore and you get a 3.2 stroker.
Now your carburetors are all different too than his. These are Weber's, right?
Yeah, so these are Weber 45s. It's really popular to stick with the SUs that come with these cars. They're very easy,
But aren't
straightforward
Weber's
to
really
tune.
hard to, SUs harder to sync? The Webers are easier?
I would say the SUs are actually more friendly to tuning. There's a
really?
lot simpler components to them, whereas Webers, there's tons of jetting combinations. You have the linkages themselves. You have all three Webers kind of fighting each other. So it takes a little bit of time to balance them.
But it's going to develop a lot more power.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So there have been a lot of dynos before and after, just straight up switching from SUs to Webers. And yes, SUs can support a decent amount of power, actually. But Webers have a really good throttle response. They breathe really well. And a lot of dynos, from a direct comparison of SUs to Webers, usually pick up 15 to 20 horsepower switching over to a
That's
Weber.
good in a car this size.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's not a very powerful car. I mean, this one dynoed at 208 wheel horsepower, but it only weighs 2,190 pounds. So, not a lot of power, but also not a lot of weight.
Well, I got to ask you about the livery, because
Oh,
this is
yeah.
the classic. Well, this is the Brock livery, right?
Yeah, so funny enough, this is a official historical tribute race car with Peter Brock Racing. So again, BRE stands for Peter Brock Enterprises, or Brock Racing Enterprises. And they have what's called a tribute program for their S30 chassis. And you can actually work on the car, submit photos as you progress through the build, and they'll work with you on what needs to be done to the car. And they'll actually have Peter Brock review the build, and they'll certify it and give you a serial number and of course the appropriate livery for the car, and enter you in the tribute program. So this is the number 7 in the tribute program. And it was really cool because I got a chance to meet up with Peter Brock
did you
over
really?
at Z-Con.
That's awesome.
And he signed the dash and
Oh,
the roof
man.
of the car.
That is so great. I mean, he's really a legend and evidently a very cool guy and easily approachable. And
Oh
stuff.
yeah, like the moment he saw the car, we started chatting about it, and he just wanted to know like all the details. What have you done? What have you used it for? And he just loved hearing about all the intricacies on it. He was a really great guy to talk to.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for sharing the details on this amazing 260Z. Thank you for being part of our All Datsun program today. We really appreciate
no
it.
problem. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Well, that about wraps up a very special edition, our All Datsun edition of Cliff and Joe Go to Cars and Coffee. Before we go, I'd like to say a big shout out to my sisters-in-law who tell me they love these videos. Well, that's very kind of you, and we love you too. So thanks for watching. We'll see you the next time.